So it finally happened. Jim Harbaugh bailed. It only took 4 years. It only took the Los Angeles Chargers being super excited, according to their tweet machine, to hire Jim Harbaugh away from Michigan. And you could argue that it only took 4 years. I'm sure Jim Harbaugh will argue that it's just simply the right time for him to leave Michigan. Now, what goes into that being the right time to leave Michigan has been well documented, and I don't know that we necessarily need to dive into it today. But by all intents and purposes, it looks like Sherrone Moore is going to replace Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. And it feels as if one of those, oh, how the tables have turned moments, because it's a very similar situation to what happened at Ohio State a few years ago when Urban Meyer departed and made it appear as if it was his idea to step aside and leave. That the timing was right for him to pass the baton to somebody else and try new challenges and hand things off to his offensive coordinator in Ryan Day. And it's eerily similar to what's going on at Michigan right now, where Jim Harbaugh is deciding that it's time to try new challenges, and it's the right moment to step away and hand things off to Sherrone Moore. So if Sherrone Moore beats Ryan Day in the game next year, was Sherrone Moore born on third base? I think you could make that argument. I also wonder if the timing is right for Sherrone Moore, and I think it is, because the expectations are going to be pretty minimal for Michigan in 2024. It's a good time to take over a job in a program like that. The Wolverines are going to graduate basically half their roster coming off a national title. Quarterback gone. Lots of changes, lots of upheaval. I think it's a good time for Sherrone Moore to take over. And I wonder if they settle so quickly on Sherrone Moore, the Michigan, the athletic department, the administration, the university, settles on Sherrone Moore so quickly because they know that while Michigan has been, and likely always will be, a very high-profile job, it might not be right now. It might not be the perfect opportunity for somebody to leave a good situation, an established spot, to go to Michigan right now. So you settle on your offensive coordinator. I wouldn't be surprised if, and it always appeared as if that was going to be the case if Jim Harbaugh left, that there wasn't going to be a restart of the college football coaching carousel because they hired somebody from this job and then that school hired somebody from this job. It just always felt like that it was going to start and end with Sherrone Moore being Jim Harbaugh's replacement. And I just wonder how much of that goes into potential NCAA violations down the line and coaches that you would expect to be listed as a potential successor to Jim Harbaugh at Michigan being wary of that situation. Because for all intents and purposes, you would think that the reigning national champion needing a new head coach would be a super high profile, high sought after job. And I can't help but think that if that were the case, Sherrone Moore wouldn't be the front runner, wouldn't be the 99.9% sure slam dunk choice for that program. You would think without there being NCAA violations potentially, or NCAA sanctions, I guess would be the more accurate, hanging over your head, that there are a whole mess of candidates that would want that job, that would be coming out of the woodwork, pounding the table to say, hey, I want that job. And I find it incredibly interesting and borderline fascinating why that isn't the case. Is it strictly potential NCAA sanctions? Does it have to do with the administration, the athletic department, the athletic director, the president, the cult-like status that Jim Harbaugh built at that school, to where its fans and defenders could look past overwhelming gobs of evidence that certainly appear to show a widespread illegal cheating system, and for the university, for the athletic department, for its fan base to simply look past, to say, essentially the argument was, they hate us because they ain't us, followed by, they can't stand to see us on top of the college football world, which Michigan's reign atop the college football world recently hit its second week. So the idea that people were trying to tear us down because they can't stand to see the maize and blue on top was ridiculous. So why wouldn't somebody come out of the woodwork, whether it's unconventional, whether it makes a ton of sense for that coach to want to be the person to replace Jim Harbaugh? Because, there's this age-old adage that you don't want to be the man to replace the man, right? You don't want to be the guy who replaces a legend. And you just saw a team that played the national championship game, their coach willingly go to Alabama to replace a legend. It's not like Jim Harbaugh is going to be viewed as this college football coaching icon, one of the greats of the sport when it's all said and done. He won a title. Some folks with scarlet-colored glasses will tell you it's a tainted title that will eventually be vacated. I've laid out my reasoning for why I don't think that will ever happen. Bill Self is on a federal wiretap. The FBI's got him admitting to cheating. You know what banners ain't come down in Allen Fieldhouse? Those ones. But it's not like Jim Harbaugh is such an entrenched figure at his school that you should be wary of replacing him. He'll leave. He's leaving Michigan with a losing record to Ohio State. And they won 3 in a row. And while that's impressive and that should be a feel-good for him, he still has a losing record against Ohio State. He has a losing record in bowl games. The idea that he is of some Nick Saban caliber or Lou Holtz at Notre Dame or whatever the case may be, Bear Bryant, is preposterous. So why aren't coaches coming out of the woodwork to be tied to that job? You can argue that it's just Michigan flat out saying, we know that we've got our guy. We have the guy that we want. Now, it's not unprecedented. Notre Dame did this with Marcus Freeman. Ohio State did this with Ryan Day. It has happened at the sport's highest levels. But I think this is a slightly different situation where, one, this is coming off of the national championship, where those two programs were not coming off of literally weeks after winning the title, deciding that their offensive coordinator, somebody that was already on their staff, is the best option to replace their head coach. Notre Dame and Ohio State didn't do that. Notre Dame and Ohio State weren't in that situation. They also didn't have NCAA sanctions potentially looming. And I think there's some feeling that because Jim Harbaugh is now bailing on college football to go back to the NFL, that means that Michigan has no more worries. I don't think that's the case. I would argue that they don't have any more worries in the sign stealing category. I think that becomes cut and dry when the Big Ten just says, yeah, another 3-game suspension will do it. And whether that is fair, wrong, right, indifferent, I can't be the judge of that. Do I think that is kind of a crappy way to operate? Sure, I do. And it appeared that the 13 other coaches in the conference thought that too. But I think when it's all said and done, that's the big issue, right? That's what leads to questions about why Sherrone Moore potentially is the best candidate for the job. And maybe he's the right guy at the right time. I don't know. But it just certainly feels as if Michigan is a bigger job than that. But when you say Ohio State and Notre Dame have done it in the past 5 years, 6 years, it's tough to argue that. But you just think that winning the national championship would make that job bigger than it is. But supposedly it's 100% slam dunk. Sherrone Moore's the guy. We'll see if that pans out. But I also wonder if Michigan fans are keenly aware that if you win that game next Saturday after Thanksgiving in 2024, the charges of this guy's born on third base are going to come right back at you. And whether you're prepared for that or not is a whole nother topic. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all that great college football content we're pumping out here on Saturday Glory. If you are listening on a podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. We'll be back at it on Sunday. Going to chat about which teams benefit the most from an expanded college football playoff. I think that's an interesting discussion. We'll have it here on Sunday on Saturday Glory.